Have you heard about that ancient battle where only a prostitute and her family survives? It's something out of a movie. Let me tell you about it. So there was this small city by a river, and for generations, the small city had closed itself off from the rule of the king. Why? Because the king had certain standards on how he wanted the nation to live, but this nation was living lawlessly. I'm talking child sacrifice, rampant prostitution, high levels of exploitation. They did whatever they wanted to whoever they wanted, as long as it was inside their city walls. Now, even though there were warnings that the king would come and make judgment, and even though the king had passed judgment on a nearby city and no one survived there, so that was a warning too, this city ignored all of the signs until one day the king's army showed up on the other side of the river. Now, three bizarre things are about to happen. Number one is the river itself literally makes way for the king's army to come through. The people thought that that river would stop them, but they're watching from the city walls and the army is walking right through it. But then something even stranger happens. Instead of attacking directly, the soldiers stop and they start cutting off a piece of their flesh. And it turns out that this was a sign, a covenantal sign of their faithfulness and their allegiance to the king. And history had taught the nations this, that when this army fights under the banner of the king, no one survives. They are undefeated. So even though it might seem strange that they wounded themselves before going into battle, that sign was actually something that they drew strength from. And then things get even more bizarre. For 6 days, this army just circles around and around the city walls. 6 days, no stones, no ladders, just the sound of an army marching and some trumpets. For 6 days, the city inhabitants are locked inside, just sitting, waiting, watching, going mad. And then on the 7th day, the pattern broke. You see, the soldiers stopped marching and they sounded their trumpets so loud that the city walls turned to dust. They literally broke down. And the army gets in and easily destroys every household, except for one, the house of a prostitute. Now, it's not what you think. It's not because they were planning on visiting her later. It's actually because this prostitute, even though you would think that she has no morals, she actually respected the king, respected his standards, and feared him. And it turns out that a few days before this army came, they had sent 2 spies to the city, and this prostitute had housed and kept these spies safe whilst people in the city were looking for them. It's because of her that these spies gained knowledge of exactly what the city looks like. And once the walls came down, it was a clean sweep for this army. I'll stop there, but if you want to know more about it, it's the city of Jericho, and you can find the story in the Bible in the book of Joshua. But let me end with these 3 key takeaways. It was Rahab, the prostitute's faith in God, God being the king, that saved her life. It wasn't because she was a morally upright or clean person. It wasn't because she was better than anyone else, but because she had the faith to believe and the faith to act on her belief. The second is that God waited almost 300 years to pass judgment. You might read Joshua and it feels like you're just reading a bunch of war conquests, but in reality, Joshua and his army represent the army of the Lord. And God waited many, many decades, centuries even, to pass judgment on the city. God is a patient God, meaning that he gave them time to turn, time to mend their ways, but he is a judge nonetheless. In fact, we would say he is not a just God if he allowed all of this to happen for generation after generation without doing something. And finally, even though God is not a God of confusion, his tactics, unlike human strategy, will confuse the enemy. What might look like temporary weakness or temporary madness even, might just be God at work.